This is Super Yacht News with E. Sisman.
Hi, welcome back to the channel. Okay, so we've got some news about Moad Yacht Octopus. Now, she was stuck on the Pacific side of the Panama Canal for approximately 4 months. Now, we reported in a previous video that the vessel actually had thrown a shaft bearing and the vessel couldn't sail under full steam, full maneuverability, because they lost an engine effectively. The shaft bearing allows the shaft to spin, the propeller's attached to the end of that shaft, and then the other end is connected to the engine. So if you lose a shaft bearing, you can't use that engine, right? So the vessel's been sat in at anchor off the Panama Canal for months now, as we reported in another video. So on the 16th of August, in very early hours of the morning, Moad Yacht Octopus finally transited the Panama Canal. Now, with just that information, you would assume that the vessel's been repaired because they've been waiting for this part for so long. You would think, okay, they must have got the part and they're on their way. However, what I noticed about the transit was that the yacht was escorted or possibly towed through the canal, certainly through the areas where the locks are. So as you go into the Panama Canal on the Pacific side, and then you come out on the other side on the Gulf of Mexico, the Octopus was towed by these tugboats. Now, that's not a normal procedure for a super yacht. There are some vessels that go through that don't have very good maneuverability, and then they have tugs either put a line on the vessel just to be on the safe side and guide them through, or escort. And that's what was happening with Moad Yacht Octopus. So that sort of makes me think that possibly they haven't repaired the vessel, but for some reason they've been given permission to transit. Because if you don't have full maneuverability, normally you won't be allowed through. So yeah, as I said, you can see in this AIS data here that as they went through on the Pacific side, you can see that there was a tugboat guiding them through, possibly towing them. I was not awake when this happened, so I wasn't able to look at the data on AIS. I just got this from going back in time. You can go back 3 days on marine traffic. The vessel's now in the San Blas Islands in Panama, which is on the Gulf of Mexico side. But what's interesting actually is that the destination that is showing on the AIS app says San Blas in Mexico, and that's actually on the Pacific side. So either the vessel entered the wrong destination, unlikely, or the marine traffic app is having some sort of episode where it's showing the wrong destination. But you can see when I click on the destination on there, it takes me to the Pacific side. So now the places have got the same name, San Blas, Mexico, and San Blas, Panama. So San Blas Islands, Panama. So there's a mistake somewhere. So anyway, the vessel's through finally, and it's at anchor now in those islands. Now, if it was trying to get back to somewhere to get some repairs done, then it wouldn't be sat at anchor most likely. So it's possible they fixed the vessel. A little bit of a mystery. If you know any more information on that, please get in touch. I would be interested to know if they fixed the vessel. All right, so we'll move on to the next story now. Now, this is a bit of a Dilbar Watch. So Moad Yacht Dilbar, you all know, the largest vessel, largest super yacht in the world by volume, has been in the Blohm + Voss shipyard in Hamburg. Blohm + Voss now owned by Lursen. It's been there since March, and the vessel hasn't moved because the owner, Alicia Usmanov, was sanctioned, and they laid off all the crew, even the captain. They were all fired, and Lursen actually brought in a skeleton crew of 5 people, I believe, who were looking after the vessel, staying in a local accommodation and coming in during the day and looking after the vessel, which is in a dry dock facility and was covered with a tarpaulin. Now, in the last few weeks, they removed all of the tarp, and the vessel has got people working on it again, which is interesting because under the sanctions rules, they're not allowed to work on that vessel. So we contacted Lursen and asked them what's going on with the vessel. Why is there people working on it? And they did reply, and I read this in a previous video, but I'll read it again. It says, "We are pleased to inform you that work is currently being carried out on the yacht Dilbar to ensure the safety of the ship, the shipyard, and the environment. The current work has been reported to the responsible authorities in advance and has been checked and approved by them. Please understand that we cannot provide any further information. Now, that's fine. You know, they've got permission, and this is what happens with people who've been sanctioned. They can sometimes get permission to pay crew members and things like that. And in this case, Lurson have said, look, we need to move this vessel, most likely so they can use that dry dock, right? But I have had some contacts from some sources that say that the vessel might be being moved to a different location. Still unsure about the location, but possibly Bremen or Bremerhaven. So I'm not quite sure why they're planning on doing that. It's quite interesting. But if you've got any information on that, please get in touch. But please, if you live, every time I mention Dilbar, I get a few people who live in the area very kindly send in photos and videos and stuff like that. But if you are in that area, please be sure to keep an eye on it, because you might see it moving one day, or you might walk past one day and the vessel's just gone. So please keep an eye out and let me know if you see anything. Okay, so we'll move on to the next story now. And we're going to go back to the vessel that sank recently after catching fire. I've done quite a bit on this now. I just basically want to answer some of the questions and some of the comments I've seen in the comments section. One of the things that I've seen a lot of is people talking about fiberglass. This vessel had a steel hull and aluminium superstructure. So, you know, it wasn't a fiberglass built vessel. People saying, oh, fiberglass catches on fire really easily and stuff like that. Well, this vessel wasn't fiberglass. Now, the superstructure was aluminium, or aluminum, as they say in the US. Now, if aluminium gets to a certain temperature, then it effectively just melts. So that's probably what we're seeing in the latter stages of that fire. But it is resistant more so than fiberglass. And the toxic fumes that fiberglass gives off is obviously not a good thing. So we have a deck plan here as well. Now, this is not a full GA, which is a general arrangement, which is what we call deck plans generally. Now, this is a deck plan that's been put out for, you know, the general public. So I can't say that for sure that this has got all the information on there that I need. It doesn't show any watertight doors. It doesn't show any fire screen doors. But like I said, I don't believe this is a full general arrangement. It's just there to show people how the vessel is laid out. But what we can take from this is that you can show you the location of the engine room, which is obviously on the lowest deck down, which will be below the waterline. And you can see that it's approximately, I would say that it's most likely that fire started in the engine room based on the position of the engine room on this deck plan. Now, if we go to the next deck here, a deck up, you'll see that the main salon is right on top of the engine room. Now, one of the eyewitness reports said that they saw flames. The first flames they saw were coming from the main salon. Now, if the engine room's right underneath it and it burns right through that deck, then it's going to go into the main salon, or you get a certain amount of heat go through the steel of the deck, and it will catch the deck above. So one of the things we do when we firefight is we do something called boundary cooling, where we go in to an area that is not on fire, and then we hose it with water to try and keep the temperature down so it doesn't combust. Yeah, so on that deck plan, we go to the next deck up, the main salon, and then forward of the main salon is the galley. So this is another area on a vessel that often has fires. So that's another, it's not that far away from the area that we're looking at. So I would still say that based on statistics, the most likely place that fire started was in the engine room. Hopefully we'll find out eventually. We will find out eventually when the report comes out. That's probably not going to be for another year though. I'm hoping that if you were a crew member on board, or if you know any crew members on board, please get in touch, or please ask them to get in touch with me. It would be very interesting to talk to somebody. Now, one of the things that I said in the video is I said there's no such thing as fireproof material when it comes to cushions, mattresses, curtains, etc. I said, and if the fire is hot enough, anything will burn in that fire. I had quite a few comments about this one. And one comment that made me smile was this one. He says, actually, there are materials that are absolutely fireproof. They just cost the packet and don't necessarily look pretty. you're looking at the likes of the space shuttle heat shields. So I don't think you can make cushions and mattresses from the heat shields from the space shuttle. So I just want to get that one out there. So anyway, we'll move on from that one. And I've got one last thing. This is a bit of fun. Jeremy Clarkson, he was one of the hosts of Top Gear for many years, and he's now a host of the Grand Tour. Very famous in the UK. I don't know whether I don't think he's as famous in the US, but most people know who Jeremy Clarkson is. Well, today he posted on Twitter that he was holidaying on a boat. And he said, don't worry if your A-level results are disappointing. I got a C and 2 U's and I'm currently holidaying on this boat. Well, he probably thought that, he didn't say the name of the boat, and he probably thought that from that angle nobody would know what boat that is. But I immediately recognized this boat, and I actually posted a reply on his feed and said, if you want to know what boat that is, please be sure to watch my video tonight. So a shameless bit of advertising there for the channel. But the vessel that he is on board is Yacht Shimara. Now, this is a beautiful boat. It was built in 1938 and was built by Vosper Thornycroft in the UK. And it saw active service in World War II between 1939 and 1945. Incredible heritage for that vessel. So the vessel kind of sat in a shipyard for about 30 years and was eventually bought by somebody who completely rebuilt this vessel, modernized it, put azipods on it, which is the electric motors, which are very cutting edge. But he did it in such a way that the vessel still looks like it would have, in 1938. He's hidden all of the modern equipment, like the VSAT domes and the electronics and stuff like that, inside the old funnel or smokestack. That smokestack is made of GRP, so glass reinforced plastic, and all of the electronics are inside of there because they don't need a smokestack anymore. For modern vessels, they can do underwater exhausts and they can have very small exhausts. They don't need a big funnel like that anymore. And even like things like the masts, they're made from carbon fiber, but they're made to look like wood to save weight. But it's quite an incredible boat. I would love to be able to go on board that boat. But the vessel is registered in the Royal Yacht Squadron in the UK of the Isle of Wight. And when the owner's on board, he's allowed to fly the White Ensign of the Royal Navy, which is fascinating to me. And that is because of something that goes back maybe 150 years when the King gave them the permission to fly the White Ensign, which is reserved ordinarily just for the Royal Navy. But anyway, Jeremy Clarkson posted on his Twitter account that this photograph that's on the screen here, and I can show you from footage that I have of the vessel, you can see that chrome period boat there, or it looks like an old boat, and you can see the wood and the canvas above, and then you can see in the background a wooden jacuzzi there, and I'll point it all out on the footage that I took of this vessel. Now the vessel was in the Bahamas 2017, and I made a video about it actually. I'll post a link in the top corner there so you can watch it if you're interested. But yeah, anyway, so I've exposed Jeremy Clarkson. The vessel, by the way, is in Kefalonia in Greece. It's at anchor currently, based on the AIS. So I've just blown up Jeremy Clarkson there, and I've told everybody where he is. So if you see Moad Yacht Shimara, then be sure to wave at Jeremy Clarkson because he's most likely still on board. All right, guys, I'm going to leave it there. If you've got any information that you want to send in, please be sure to do that through the normal ways. You can get us through the About page of the YouTube channel. You can get us on Instagram. You can get us on Facebook Messenger, and you can get us on Threema. Be sure to like this video, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell for future notifications. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll catch up with you soon. Bye-bye. All right, thanks very much, and have a great weekend. And, oh, hang on a minute. It's not Friday, is it? So, okay, thanks very much for watching, and, now I've gone my brain's gone dead.